Awesome. Welcome back, friends, to our After the Pause podcast YouTube series. I never know what to call it. You
Yes.
always do such a good job when you come on and do the intro. No, truly. Like you've done it 1,000 times, and I'm always like, I don't know what to say.
Who am I and where am I?
Yes.
Do I live in
But
this computer?
friends, you're here, and thanks, because obviously we're a little awkward. Um, but this is the place where we talk about, well, all things courage, really, is what it boils down to. But we have been going through our book that we wrote together, A Place Called Braverly. We've interviewed lots of people, and we realized that we've never done the interview ourselves. So we realized that with last week's episode. You interviewed me. Um, this week, you're in the hot seat. So
Hey.
that's exciting. Yeah, so I mean, if you didn't see last week's episode, you should just know a little bit about Kate as we've known each other feels like forever. Dating all the way back to your freshman year of high school, which dare we admit the year? Was that 2008?
It was 2008. Here we are.
No, here we are.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Whoa.
Gotta hold your breath there for a second.
I
Oh.
know. We've done a lot of life together though.
Mhm.
And at the risk of just not repeating what you already shared, I just remember um, as a freshman, I was volunteering in high school ministry. You were a freshman in high school. The night that we really like connected, I guess, for the first time, there was just something like the Lord just highlighted you in the room.
Mhm.
And I just remember being determined, like, I'm not leaving this room until I talk to this girl. And I
It's
was
not weird,
probably
everyone.
so awkward, and I didn't even care. I was like, I don't know, the Lord's highlighting her. I gotta go talk to this girl. And the rest is kind of history.
Mhm.
We've just done a lot of life together in a lot of different places, through a lot of different ways. So I could go on and on about how we know each other, but Kate, why don't you tell us who you are and what you're up to?
Yes, I love it. Christy, I also remember probably not the first time we met, but you were also like doggedly determined to get me to like hugging. Um, like
Which
I
does sound weird.
It does. But by that point we were friends and it wasn't
We were, yes.
as weird. But I was just not a hugger and I was like I didn't know how to express my emotions. And obviously sometimes I still struggle. But you truly, I credit you to be the one that like really taught me to be okay with hugs. Oh, dear Lord.
Oh, I
Okay.
sound so weird. Okay.
Well, but you are, and it's fine, and that's why I love you. Now you're actually not that weird. But hey, friends, I'm Kate, obviously. I live in Chicago, north side of the city. A lot of people say that they live in Chicago and they live in like Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But I actually live in Chicago. My husband and I are on the north side of the city. We're really close to the suburbs, but that's beside the point. We still pay city taxes, so you know what I mean. So we are up here on the north side of the city. I work remotely with Christy, obviously, because here we are on Zoom. I work kind of with Outpour Family Foundation, with the book, things like that. But I also here in the city in my beautiful neighborhood called what is my neighborhood called? There's a lot of different names for it. That's why I paused. Some people call it Little India. Some people call it West Rogers Park. Some people call it West Ridge. You all don't need to know that. I could literally have told you any name. It's fine. But I work with refugees and immigrants here in the city. I work with a little ministry called Divine Oasis Ministry, and we do a lot of teaching English, a lot of homework help for kids. I lead a sewing/baking group, and I'm good at one of those things. And the other, I am just total crap. And the ladies know way more than me. It's sewing, by the way. I don't know what I'm doing. But really what we do here is just build relationships, do a lot of home visits and share Jesus with people as we can. We don't ever force it down their throats, but we want to share who Jesus is. So also on the side, doing a lot of freelance writing and trying to just continue to help others share their vision through writing. And that's something I'm also super passionate about. So that's a little bit about me here on the north side of Chicago, working remotely with my best friend. So it's fine.
I love it. Woot woot. Shout out to your
Woo,
best friend who's sounds amazing, by the way.
you.
Oh gosh. No, I love it. I love what you're doing. I love where you're at. I love that, like, I'm sure you don't always feel it, but you are thriving. You really are. And I just have so much to learn from you all the time. I love hearing your stories and when you share about the kind of work that you're doing. Because look, to be honest, I feel like, and I mean, you talked about, like, one of the things you're doing in this sewing slash baking group, right? You're doing things that some people could look at and say, that's just uncomfortable. Like, I bet you have a lot of uncomfortable moments, which
I
is
do.
true. Absolutely. We've talked a lot with a lot of different people about just, right, fears and insecurities that
Hmm.
we battle. And so I'm curious for you, if we can flip the script on you and ask you, what are some of the fears and insecurities that you do battle with every day? Yeah, or have had to do battle with over the years?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's been a few in my life that just keep creeping up. Like, I think last week we talked about, like, man, are there moments where you're like, I thought I overcame that, and here we are, and I feel just as insecure as I did when I thought I overcame it. So I don't know if the challenges get bigger or what. But for me, there's two that really stick out for me, and one of them you talked about. And I was like, I should say something different, but it's just really true for me. So I'm like, well, I'm just gonna be honest. I mean, the fear of not blank enough. So whether it's been not good enough, something for me that's been a big insecurity and fear is just not like competent enough. Like I'm not, and that's kind of like good enough, but it really shows up for me in like in the work spaces that I show up in, whether it's ministry here in the neighborhood or like last week I had a meeting with a potential client to do some copywriting for her website. And I was supposed to like lead the meeting, and the whole time I was like, what am I doing? Where is the adult? She should be leading this meeting, or he, I don't care. But like just feeling like not competent enough to show up in those spaces that like I do feel called to and I feel passionate about. But then you get it, like I get into those spaces and it's just like deer in headlights. And I feel like I don't someone more qualified is right behind me and she's cheering, right? Because I should get out of the way. But no one is there. It's me that should be showing up to that meeting or that space, whatever it is. But certainly that idea of like not blank enough has been a big one for me since I was little. I'm the youngest of three brothers. So definitely have spent a lot of time in my life just trying to prove that I belong in a space and that I'm good enough or capable enough, strong enough to be in that space. But I think another big one for me that I've had to do battle with is it kind of goes hand in hand with the idea of not enough, whatever it is. But I deal with a lot of perfectionist tendencies. And so I think when I sit down to write, or like I've been sending out different feelers to different people to figure out, like, do you need help with freelance writing or just different things like that. I have this idea that if I can't do it perfectly, like what am I doing? Or like I get stuck in spaces because I'm afraid that it's not going to be perfect. And newsflash, it's not going to be perfect because like there's just no such thing as something that's perfect. And so that I have to do battle with that fear constantly to even just make it past that like threshold to step into something. I got to make it past that fear and the insecurity that says, like it's not worth doing if it's not going to be perfect. I'm afraid of what I'm going to put out there because it's not going to be perfect. So that's another thing that I have definitely had to battle with over the years, not blank enough and not perfect, which are pretty much the same thing. Sometimes it just sounds different, but the feelings are the same and they're real.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, like, I feel like every single person listening, no matter who you are, you can relate to one, if not both of those things.
Yeah.
Hearing you share, gosh, perfectionism is such a lie, and yet it's
Yes.
such a stronghold in so many
Hmm.
people's lives, and my life included. Like, I feel what you're saying about that. Like, it'll stop me sometimes, from stepping into certain places of, like, well, until it's perfect, I can't
Yeah.
I can't do that. And like the amount of times, this is a silly example, but like it's a real example, like that I kick myself for sending something out and I find like a typo in it or like misplaced punctuation. I'm like, oh, Christy, you
What a
idiot.
mistake.
Like, yeah. And I get so hard on myself for things not being perfect because, right, it matches up with this thing of like, I feel like I'm not meeting up to someone else's standard of me.
Hmm.
And that's just not true either. So, all that to say, thank you for sharing those because I think it's so relatable. And there's going to be plenty of people listening that are like, yeah, okay, that's a struggle for me.
Yeah.
Um, so with that, not exclusively those two, but what are just some practices that you've put into place in your life to help you live courageously every day, to help you get past some of the fears that you have these challenges of coming up against?
Yeah, totally. I I am a huge journaler. So I know you are too, and I know I'm sure a lot of people who are watching are as well. It's okay if you're not. But um I am a huge journaler. Like even this morning, at about like 20 minutes before we hopped on and we're recording, and still I got out my journal and I was just journaling through like just things that were weighing on my mind. A lot of it is just prayers, talking to the Lord, and just processing through life. I think that for me, journaling has helped so much, to just center in and focus in on the Lord. I don't do as much like dear diary today is blah, blah, blah. Although sometimes I do, I'm gonna be honest. But a lot of times it's like, Jesus, I am really nervous about this thing that's coming up. Like in a few weeks, I'm supposed to share at a ladies outreach here in Chicago, and I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. And I'm really intimidated by that, for a number of different reasons. There's just a lot of factors going into this. And so just even this morning, I was like, Jesus, like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I need you to lead me in this. Like, and I just was praying through that, like, just really journaling through a lot of the ideas that I was going through my mind, that I was processing. So for me, journaling and especially just prayers, writing out those prayers, that is one of the biggest ways that I practice courage every day. And I try to do it at the start of the day. Like I'm not a mom. I don't have kids that are like, hey, I need this, I need this. My husband is self-sufficient, so he's fine. So I don't have these things weighing on me. So that time in the morning is pretty easy for me to carve out. Um, I definitely feel for the moms in my life who are like, I would love that, but I've got kids hanging off me like 24/7. For me, like I've been able to create that space. And it's been such a huge release for me and a huge way to such a powerful way to start the day. And to try to choose courage every day. I know that when I don't start that way, it's really hard for me to come back from that. Because it really is that sweet space with the Lord. I think Christy, you talked about this in one of your, actually in the chapel, talk that you gave just a few weeks ago, and you said come close to Jesus, and that is what that journaling is for me. It's coming close to Jesus to find my courage there, to find my like motivation there for the day. Um, right. Cause we could be brave. We could, kind of fake some of that stuff. But for me, like it doesn't last very, like that courage doesn't last very long unless I truly find it in the Lord first. So journaling for me is such a big way of doing that. And I think the other practice that I try to lean into, some days better than others. And this one comes into to play more when I'm in like maybe a work environment that I feel insecure in. So like the sewing group that I lead, or just meetings. This is a big thing for me in meetings. So that's when my like incompetency, like that feeling comes out, like that imposter syndrome, all of that. And really like the mantra that I repeat to myself, or just that courage practice that I have, is to just say like, I belong here. I belong here. Um, Even if I don't feel it. And so it's just a thing that I sometimes remember to repeat to myself. Um, and it does wonders for me just mentally to say like, I belong here. I belong here. I belong here. Okay. Whew, I belong here. And sometimes I have to repeat it like that many times, mostly quietly in my own head, not really out loud, because that's a little weird. And people tend to just be like, no, you don't. So that's another practice that I try to lean into, just changing that soundtrack in my mind, from man, I don't belong here to like, no, I belong here. I have a seat at the table.
Mhm. Oh, that's so powerful. I remember you're the one that actually introduced me to, because it's a book.
Yeah,
Now I'm gonna forget the exact title. Is it just
it's
soundtracks
just
or?
soundtracks, and then there's a
Yeah.
subtitle, as all books have. You can't have a
Yeah.
title without a subtitle.
Well, you can't.
No.
No, but like that introduced me to that idea, which I mean isn't like a new idea to us. Maybe we just haven't heard it called that, but like to hear it in those terms, like the book talks about changing the soundtracks in your head and like what are the things that are on repeat, because those really determine a lot about
Mhm.
how you'll go about your day, how you'll go about your life, right? So I love that it's a practice that you have of like, how am I going to turn something in my head that's negative into something that's empowering and positive and can breed courage in my life instead,
Yeah.
by simply saying I belong here. That's really powerful, and to anyone who hasn't checked out that book, you should also do that, because it's just good truth.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for sharing that, friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, while we're talking about mantras and
Yeah.
soundtracks, I'm curious for you, what is some truth? It can be one thing, it can be a couple of things, but that you do hold on to. Like, what are those key soundtracks, that key scripture, whatever it is, um, that you help you like overcome fears, that help you walk with courage. If you'd be willing to share a couple of those with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, as I thought through this question too, one of the things that my mind keeps coming back to is like courage. We need it like in the moment, like when we're facing that fear. Like whether it's like whether for me, if I'm in a meeting and I like know that I need to speak up about something, that's like a moment of courage. I gotta overcome some fear. And like in the moment, I have to step past that fear and into courage and to speak up. But I think so much of what we're talking about here is we talk about how do we live more courageously. So much of it does happen well before that moment. For me, at least, it happens like in the quiet spaces with the Lord, and it like with journaling, with just figuring out like what are the lies that I believe, what are the things that I have to do battle with now, so that when I am in that room, I can choose courage. And that to me is where this question really lives as well. It's in the before point of
Mhm.
actually stepping courageously. And for me, one of the passages of scripture that I really hold on to a lot. This is gonna be really embarrassing. It's either Psalm 61 or 62. Sorry. I can't remember because there's another one. It's like 51 that's really powerful for me. But essentially what that psalm says is let everything that I am wait quietly before God, for my trust is in him. He alone is my rock and my foundation, like my place where I'll not be shaken. And it just twice it says like let all that I am wait quietly before God. Um, and that to me is something that I hold on to quite a bit, which doesn't feel like a mantra of courage. Like, yeah, be strong and courageous. Like that is a mantra of courage. But like for me, because I know how quickly I can spiral because of how much I can overthink things, in the moment, I have to come back. Like if the moment is here, I have to start way before here and just say, let all that I am come like wait quietly before God. Like let all of those fears, all of those overthinking, all of those thoughts just come quiet before the Lord. That's something that I remember it gets years ago that I first read that, and it just was a punch to me of like, oh man, this is what I need to hold on to. Because if I want to live courageously, if I want to dream boldly, first I have to come quietly before God and just have that closeness with him. And so that's one of the scriptures that's really powerful for me. And then I wrote down another soundtrack. Sorry, I was trying to get my
Yeah.
Face ID to work, but it was like hold my phone up in front of the screen. Jeez. The other thing that is kind of less spiritual but spiritual at the same time, it's a soundtrack that I have reversed. So the thought that a lie that's come into my mind. And then this is a soundtrack that I switched it up with. And it just says, I am someone who does hard things. God doesn't expect perfection, and I don't either. And so it's just, for me, it's this idea of like, I am somebody who can do those hard things. I'm somebody that can choose courage, and choose to do that thing that really scares me. And you know what? God doesn't expect perfection. So I shouldn't either. So they go hand in hand, where it's like, Kate, you are somebody that does hard things. Like, you can do this. You can step into that space that feels really, um, really scary. And then right there with it is like, hey, don't worry. Like, God does not expect perfection. So like, if he doesn't, you shouldn't. And so those are two other like things that I also just hold on to, or try to. Some days better than others.
I love that. That's so good. I love that verse. I kind of like, I just, when we're done here, I want to go look it up and write it down because it's just such a good one.
It's a
And
good one.
I think one of the reasons I love that question and I love like us asking anyone is because it helps give us new like
Yeah.
truth to grab a hold of too, right? Like new mantras. There's something very likely that like someone else will share that you're like, oh my gosh, I need that in my life too. And I think
Yeah.
that's what's so cool about doing life with others. We need each other. And we talk about this in the book too, right? Like we share and borrow courage from one another. And
Mm-hmm.
just like we share and borrow like those soundtracks, those mantras, that truth that we need to hold on to. So it's a really beautiful thing. So thanks for sharing those and
Yeah.
giving our listeners another truth to grab a hold of. Okay, so you asked me this question last week, so I wanted the opportunity to ask it to you. Um, but yeah, we haven't asked a lot of other people. But the question is this: what is one courageous dream that you're excited about right now?
Can I share two?
Sure, absolutely.
Yes. Well, I think that there's two right now that are just like doing battle with each other because they're just so exciting. And one of them just has to do with the book, and our original heart, and our heart still in it, is to translate, print, and distribute this book in Thailand and Burma, because resources like this, written in their language with women specifically in mind, like, they don't exist. And so that's been our heart from the beginning in 2008 when I first moved out to Thailand. Um, and we're taking steps towards that. And I think this year, hopefully, prayers up, that it's the year to see like some major ground made in that area. And so often, Christy, we're like, what are we doing? Like, some people have asked me, like, hey, how are things going with the book? What are you guys doing? And I'm like, yes, I am working with translators to translate into Thai and Burmese and Korean. Also, I'm trying to figure out printing in Thailand. Like, there's so much about it. I'm like, I don't like Christine, her, and Kayla as well. We're just trying to figure it out. Like, we have no idea. And so it truly is a dream where it's like, okay, God has to show up. Otherwise, we're going to fall on our face. And so that's a big one that I'm really excited about, because I think that the truths that we talk about in this book, they're so much bigger than Thailand and Burma. They're so much bigger than the States. Like, they're truths from scripture. So they transcend culture and country. And so I'm just so excited about that, and about getting the book into the hands of the women that inspired it all, from the very beginning. So that's a big one. And I think the second one, there's just been a dream in my heart to do a lot more writing, and to help others tell the stories that God has put on their heart. And so I'm trying to take steps into that little bit by little bit. And it's just another area where I'm like, if God does not show up, like, I'm screwed. So that's another really big area that there's some dreams brewing and growing, and absolutely need him to show up.
I love that though so much because look, friends listening, if you haven't discovered it by now, Kate is a phenomenal writer, a phenomenal storyteller, and I get so excited to think about like more things out there written by you that like I can have in my hands and just read and be like, my friend wrote this. This is amazing. No, like there's such a gift over you. There truly
Mhm.
is. And I hope you know that. And I'm excited for all the ways that the Lord's going to continue to unpack that with you. Because I think it's a beautiful dream. And like I see that, right? Like I see that it's writing stuff is no joke. It is hard to like get into that, and not only to like get started on it, right? And like conquering your own like mind that's telling you like, oh, you totally are not capable of doing this, but also just breaking into that kind of a business and
Mm-hmm.
putting yourself out there and finding the right connections. It's hard, and it truly for us would not have happened if the Lord didn't show up and swing
Yeah.
wide doors. And so I understand that part of that dream, and it really takes partnership with him and like a deep,
Yeah.
deep trust that he's going to lead you in that. And again, I'm just so excited for all that that's going to look like. So
Yeah.
stay tuned, friends. More to come. Mm-hmm.
Oh, thanks, friend. Well, back at you as far as writing goes. You're amazing.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Toss, toss.
Test us. Maybe there'll be another co-authored book coming from the fantastic duo
we
here.
we have been asked that. We were asked that like before this first one even officially came out. Like, so what are you guys gonna write next? We're like,
I'm like,
can we have a second?
I know we're trying to publish this
Next.
one. Can we do that? Ugh.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Who knows? Stay tuned, friends. Maybe there's more. But in the meantime, if you have not yet picked up your copy of A Place Called Braverly, you can still do so. We would encourage you to, especially to anyone who is looking for that push toward courage, toward even just closeness in a relationship with
Mm-hmm.
the Father. You and I share pretty openly in the book just our own journey with the Lord, and we do so because we just understand the value of coming close to him, right? Of walking with him, and we just want so much um for ourselves to take that journey with others and to be able to encourage others in their own journey with the Lord. So if you're a person that's looking for just understanding more about who God is and who he's created you to be, or just needing that push toward courage, it's a great resource for you to check out. You can get it off of our website, a place called braverly.com, or anywhere that books are sold. If you go to our website, there is a free ebook version, and who doesn't love free things? So you could get your copy of that in ebook. And also on there, we worked on a study guide, a small group guide is what we've called it, which is also a free resource. You don't have to have it to go through the book, but it's something that just pairs well with it, that goes a little bit deeper. You can certainly do it by yourself, but it's designed to do in community because we are so for community and we need
Mm-hmm.
each other. So check out all of those things, a place called braverly.com. Before we go, I just wanted to read a quote, Kate, from one of your chapters, chapter 6. I'm going to read it off of my phone because my bookmark fell out of my book. So this is fun. So if I squint at the screen, it's because I'm trying to read my phone right now. It's great. Um, but chapter 6, you wrote it. It's the chapter is called "What's That in Your Hand?" And the quote simply says this: "When we see what's in our hands, we can step into a dream bigger than we could accomplish on our own. When we choose worship over worry, dependence over self-reliance, he takes what's in our hand and leads us to a place we could never go on our own. Moses' staff turns into a snake. Israel's shout crumbles the walls of Jericho. And in the place of surrender and total dependence, the Father uses those simple, ordinary things we hold to do the miraculous. He doesn't just ask what's in our hand, he asks us to trust, to believe that he will do what seems impossible. He asks us to depend on him even when our hearts beg to make things happen on our own. And he tells us to worship him before victory comes." I love that quote. I love that chapter. I love all of the things that you wrote. But what a powerful truth to just end on today as we talk about these courageous dreams and overcoming the fears in our life. That he's simply asking us not only what's in your hand, but will you just trust me? Will you just come close and walk with me? And will you praise me for the victory that you don't yet see? And that is powerful truth. Yeah. So I hope you can hold on to that today, friends.
That's good.
Kate, thank you so much for being here. You didn't have a choice, but thanks
I was
for
gonna
being
say
here.
I didn't have a choice. Happy to be
Thanks for
here.
letting us put you through the interview as well. It's been a lot of fun. I mean, we always have fun together.
Oh yeah.
We're excited to interview more people, to talk about more things, to just pursue lives of courage together. So thanks for joining us, friends. tune in again. If you've missed other episodes, go back and watch them. Check out the resources on our site, and we will see you next time.